there's a lot of emphasis on, how to start the interview. So how to introduce yourself effectively, how to make a good first impression, and then how to conduct yourself during the interview. But there's very little emphasis on how to finish the interview, which is just as important. Now, usually when candidates are preparing for job interviews, they put a lot of effort in preparing for how they're going to answer the questions, how they're going to introduce themselves, how they're going to conduct themselves during the interview, which is all very crucial for a job interview. But many leave out how to end the interview. How you finish the interview is just as important as all of the previous stages, and it could be the make or break of whether you get the job or not. So it's definitely not a stage that you should neglect. The reason I say this is because how you finish an interview is crucial in what lasting impression you leave in the interviewer's mind. The very interesting thing is most candidates have no clue about how to finish an interview. So if you can master how to finish an interview and leave that good lasting impression in the interviewer's mind, you are already going to be one of the few that stand out at the interview. Let's get into how to finish a job interview in a way that makes them remember you and makes you stand out. So the first tip is never leave an interview without asking questions. If you miss this step, this can majorly lower your chances of getting the job. Now, that might be surprising to a lot of people because everyone usually has the idea that an interview is one-sided, where the interviewer asks the questions and you as the candidate answer, and that's the process of how the interview goes. But you need to remember that the job, you're trying to see if the job is right for you as well. So asking questions is crucial. And because a lot of people have this mentality, what it means is that a lot of candidates actually don't ask questions at the interview, and just when the interview asks them, do you have any questions? They just say no and they get up and leave. I'm sure a lot of people are still thinking, but why is it such a major issue if I don't ask a question that I can potentially lose a job? Like, why is it so important? When you don't ask any questions at the interview, that translates to the interviewer to mean that you're not really that interested in the job role. You're not really that enthusiastic because you don't have any questions to ask. And it can also mean that maybe you're not somebody that's really focused on this job. You're just applying for any job and just hoping that one job sticks. Remember, always make sure that you ask questions at the end of the interview. But wait, there is a strategy of how you go about these questions. The first thing is you want to make sure that you prepare your questions before the job interview. The last thing you want to be doing is getting to the job interview and then now you're thinking of a question to ask. It doesn't look good and you look like an unorganized person and it doesn't come across natural. The second thing is when you're preparing these questions is make sure you prepare at least 4 to 5 questions. I say 4 to 5 questions, not in the sense that you should ask 4 to 5 questions. I say prepare 4 to 5 questions so that in case the interviewer ends up answering some of your questions during the interview process, you still have some interview questions left to ask. That's happened to me a few times where I've had interview questions and then just during the conversation, the interviewer has answered all of the questions that I wanted to ask. And now it gets to the end of the interview and I'm just like, I have no questions left. Always have some backup questions. The next thing in regards to this is when you're actually asking these questions, the number of questions that you ask is also important. I would advise not to go over 2 to 3. Remember, you also have to respect the interviewer's time. You have to appreciate that he probably has other people to interview or he's got other job load that he needs to do. So you don't want to overburden him or her with too many questions. Just before I go any further, if you are currently job searching right now and find that you're facing constant rejection, no matter how many job interviews to go for, then I have the solution for you. One of the main reasons why people don't pass job interviews is not because they don't have experience or they're lacking certain skills. It's because they don't have the confidence, and therefore they're not convincing the interviewer that they are capable of doing the job. So I have a free webinar on job interview confidence and how to nail it in order to land the jobs that you want. I'll leave the link below. Now I'm sure you're all probably thinking, okay, so I need to ask questions, but what type of questions should I be asking? One of the questions that you should always ask at any job interview you go to is, when can you expect to hear back? It's really, really important in just maintaining your sanity. I say that because there's been so many instances where you go to a job interview and then a week passed or something and you haven't heard back, and you're trying to deliberate, should I contact them, shouldn't, what if I sound too pushy? And you're going through all of that mental arithmetic in your head, and all of that could have been avoided by them telling you when you can expect to hear back from them. Always make sure that that is one of your questions that you ask. Now, in regards to other questions that you could ask, there's like a whole plethora of questions that you could ask, and I wouldn't be able to get through all of this in one video, but I would say focus on questions that are in relation to the job role itself. When I say in relation to the job role itself, I mean the type of things that they are expecting from you in the job role, which is very important for you to know. So if you do get the job, at least you can hit the ground running because you know what you're being measured on. Asking questions, for example, such as how will my performance be measured, or a question such as what will be expected of me in the first, let's say, 3 to 6 months. Things like that are very, very important, and it shows your level of enthusiasm and actually wanting to, get this job and hit the ground running and start delivering results. So it will really impress the interviewer. Now, the last tip I'm going to mention is optional, but it can literally save your life. So this tip is in regards to confronting any issues. Well, that might sound a bit scary, like you're about to go into a fight or something. I don't mean it in that way. I'll explain. So have you ever been in a situation where you come out of an interview and all of a sudden you start remembering things that you probably could have said at the interview, but you completely forgot? Or let's say you were unsuccessful at the interview, but they give you the reason why you were unsuccessful. And you're thinking, damn, if I could have explained that away at the interview, maybe I could have had a chance of getting the job. But now there's no other chances. You no longer have that job. That's the kind of situation I'm talking about where this comes in handy. Now, the way that you confront any issues is by asking this particular question. Do you have any concerns about my ability to do the role? Now, usually at this point, if the interviewer doesn't have any concerns and the interview's gone quite well, he or she might say, no, I don't have any concerns. And at least then you know that you've done everything in your power to make sure that you can secure the job. And now it's literally in their hands. Or they can start to mention a concern or concerns that they had. And this is not necessarily a bad thing. It's actually a good thing because now you have a second chance to actually combat their concerns and reassure them that you are somebody that is, good for the role. You wouldn't have had a chance to do that if you didn't ask that question, because you wouldn't have known what was going on in their head and what concerns they were having about you, which, could have potentially stops you from getting the job if you didn't have a chance to then, reassure them about that concern not being that much of a concern, if that makes sense. So, for example, let's say you've gone for a job interview, and let's say one of the things that they've asked for is experience in something. And let's say you don't have that particular experience, but you've gone for the job interview. And now that you ask the question, do you have any concerns? And they say, yeah, we're concerned that you don't have this experience. Now you can combat that by saying, that you're a fast learner. Maybe give an example of when you've learned a system fast at your previous job, something like that to combat that particular concern that they had. And that could obviously increase your chances of then getting that job. So that brings me to the end on how to finish a job interview and make them remember you by giving that great last impression. Now, if you're one of those people that have not mastered how to go about job interviews, then watch my playlist going through how to conduct yourself at interviews. Found that informative, please press like. Also, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, subscribe to my channel for content like this on a weekly basis, and also my most important videos, which is how to pass interviews. I'll see you in the next video.